Greetings and salutations, this is Hugh Jarsz, the biggest YouTuber ever! And good morning, Jarsols! Welcome to the final edition, for now anyway, of the Daily Jarsz for the 25th of November 2023. As I announced yesterday, a change in circumstances for me means that I need to give up the daily format, but fear not. Next Friday at 2000 UTC, at 6 a.m. Saturday morning for those in the Eastern Australian Standard Time Zone, add an hour for those on daylight saving. 6 a.m. Saturday, I said, yep. I'll be starting the Weekly Jarsz. The Weekly Jarsz. We'll look at the derp of the week just past over 90 minutes. Think of it as 6 daily Jarszes compressed into 2. If that's not a reason to see corgis, I don't know what is. Members, let's see some corgi emojis in the chat. A special shout out to those who clicked subscribe yesterday. Welcome to the world of Jarsz. I hope you enjoyed the show. Today, we look at cut price Samuel Rowbotham, Eric Dubay. And if you don't know who Samuel Rowbotham is, he was a grifter from the 1800s who was considered the idiot zero of the modern flat earth movement. A movement that is slowly but surely being crushed by the Hugh Jarsz movement. Dubay emulates his grifting, and as you'll see, constantly spewing lies and gaslighting. One of the problems with Dubay is his... I cannot words today. One of the problems with Dubay is his extremely annoying voice. If this was a regular video instead of a live stream, I'd do something about that. But unfortunately, because it's a live stream, I can't. But on the upside, he spews forth so many lies for me to debunk, there'll be lots of breaks. But before we get stuck into Eric the Dumb, I want to thank my YouTube members. Thank you once again for all that you do for me, and thanks for being part of the Hugh Jarsz movement. And because Eric the Dumb is a cut-price copy of Idiot Zero, I have to play the facepalm warning. Headphone warning in 3, 2, 1... Severe facepalm warning is in effect. Oven mitts mandatory from this point forward. You are at risk of pummeling yourself to death with facepalm. And I hope your oven mitt is up now. I did think of having a crack at these 200 proofs, which in reality are about 30 really bad and unsupported arguments repeated ad nauseum, but I didn't want to be here all day. And they've been debunked many, many times by others anyway. His channel is full of hilarious conspiratorial nonsense, a sure sign that his main motivation is to grift the money of paranoid idiots. So I've settled on just 2 videos. In fact, I couldn't even get through the second one, so we'll be looking at that one together. Believe me, with the dearth-like rate of lies one after another to debunk, that's plenty. The first one is entitled, "The Earth is Not Flat. What a Surprise." I wonder if he'll support that positive claim as the burden of proof requires. Let's have a look.
Something most globe believers are shocked to learn is that so-called flat earthers like myself actually agree that the Earth is not flat. The Oxford Dictionary defines flat, when used as an adjective, as being smooth and even, without marked lumps or indentations.
Oops.
The Earth most certainly has lumps and indentations across its expanse, in the form of hills, mountains, and valleys, peaks and troughs, from the heights of Mount Everest to the depths of the Mariana Trench, and in that sense, the world is definitely not flat.
Typical flat earther playing semantics. No one disagrees with anything he's saying. He's wasted 40 seconds of his video saying something that didn't need to be said.
There is more than one definition of flat, however, and when used as an adverb, for example, The Oxford Dictionary defines flat as being in a horizontal position. When flat earthers call the Earth flat, not a single one is denying the existence of hills, mountains, and valleys, but
And we already understood that.
rather we are affirming the Earth to be situated in a horizontal position, as a level plane, and denying the existence of spherical curvature claimed by globe defenders.
And supported by globe defenders with empirical evidence. Your claim of flat Earth is not supported by any evidence.
So the Earth may not be perfectly flat, but one thing that always remains.
So I want to stop on this image before he goes on. So this is classic gaslighting. We do not believe this lower one. That is clearly a wide-angle lens that's distorted the horizon. And I will show to you that he's doctored this image. In fact, all the images where it shows a flat horizon over water, he's doctored it. I'll show you the first one, this one. Let's do a compression. So we resize, take off the maintain aspect ratio, drop horizontal down to 5%. Watch what happens. I'll zoom in a bit. Perfectly flat. But note the darkness near the horizon as you know the light compresses up because of you're seeing more and more ocean compressed into smaller segments, you might say. See, there's a curve there. That's because on the original, if I just go Control Z, don't I? Oh, go away. On the original, you can see that, but it's much more subtle, of course. And when you compress it, I'll compress it again. You can see the effect of the doctored darkness much more clearly. The fact there's a curve there at all in that darkness shows that the horizon itself was doctored. And the amazing thing about this is he's done it on all the images in this video. I've gone through and done this for all of them. If you go to the ocean side, take a photo where there's a clear horizon and do this compression, if you've got a wide enough angle of view, you'll get a curve. We've seen that many times. But he's deliberately gaslighting you with this image to try and get you, first of all, straw manning what you believe, and then giving you false evidence to support what he says and trying to get you to believe it.
So are large bodies of water at rest. The Earth is claimed to be approximately 71% covered in water, all of which is demonstrably horizontal and level.
Locally, yes. This is what flirts don't get. They don't get scale. They say, oh, well, this pond is flat. Well, but, to all intents, effective purposes, yes. But it's a tiny piece of the Earth's surface. You've got to measure over a much larger. Yes, conspiracy by Big Ocean, the Turtle Move says, yes. If you're looking at it just locally, you're only seeing a tiny piece of the data set. But Flurfs, because that suits Flurfs, that's what they stick to.
It is the natural physics of water and other liquids to remain flat.
Another doctored picture. I compressed this one and this one and this one. He's doctored these to make them look flat. In fact, if you look closely at the bits at the end, you can see that he's actually played with it. He's probably taken a picture that had a much wider field of view, made it as flat as he could, cut off the end so it was a bit harder to tell that he doctored it, and then he presented this to you. Like I said, anyone can go to the seaside themselves, take their own photo of a horizon and compress the photo and see that there's curvature there. The Earth is 40,000 kilometers in circumference. Your field of view might be 50 at most. It's a tiny proportion of the curve. You're not going to see it straight away at sea level anyway. And you shouldn't expect to.
Flat when contained and undisturbed. This fundamental physical property of water.
Another doctored photo. I've compressed this one. It's doctored.
Is why it has been used by builders and engineers as a leveling tool for millennia.
And again, it only shows that local point on the Earth's surface. The Earth is huge. Earth big, you small. Why can't Flurf scale?
Whether in a bucket, a bath.
And they don't compare properly too. This puddle, what's that? Maybe 2 meters across at most. This pool, 25 meters at most. This lake, maybe 200 meters at most. 40,000 kilometers. So from that point around to that point is 20,000 kilometers over the surface. It's not the same scale. You can't compare them.
Bathtub, a pool, pond, lake, or ocean, the surface of water at rest always remains horizontal and doesn't have the ability to show convexity or any shape whatsoever.
Locally, no, but over distance, yes. We've measured it. We'll get into that in a minute.
Upon its surface. This fact is easily demonstrable and empirically verified.
It's not. I love it when flirts say they've empirically verified what they do. And again, scale. I've just gone through that. Even at this one, which would be the biggest scale, that's a tiny part of the Earth's surface. Water in the glass compared to a globe. How stupid can you be? He must really think his followers are incredibly stupid.
Viable, but completely at odds with what we are told about the globe. If Earth was truly a sphere, covered 71% in water, the oceans would have to be somehow curving around and sticking to all sides of a rapidly spinning ball suspended in space.
And how is that possible?
Gravity, you fucking retard! You fucking retard! Have you ever heard of fucking gravity? Have you ever heard of fucking gravity? Gravity! Gravity!
I hope he gets the point now.
In reality, it is simply impossible to make water behave this way, as anyone
Gravity!
Just in case he missed the point.
can experiment for themselves. Bodies of water will not stick to the underside of a ball.
And I love it when they say that, because it implies that the reason it sticks. Oh, the echo's back. Oh, bloody Google Chrome. That ruins my presentation. Sorry to hear that. Oh, how am I going to do this? I won't be able to insert all my funny clips. What a shame. All right, well, we're just going to have to listen to my droning voice. Yeah, I love it when they say. In fact, I forget what he said. Now let's go back.
Will not stick to the underside of a ball, and cannot show convexity or any other shape upon them.
Well, you've got to look at it over distance. If you look at it in a glass of water, obviously you're not going to see that. Your eyes aren't that good.
Their surface. Furthermore, while the entire Earth may not be flat, vast expanses ranging hundreds of miles, from the Great Plains of America to the salt flats of Bolivia, do not vary in elevation more than a few inches or a few feet over their entirety.
So, elevation has nothing to do with curvature. Only echoes with desert file. Yeah, so when I play my clips, which I've set up in StreamYards, that's when you're going to get the echo. So, yeah, that's a Google Chrome bug, apparently, if I was using something other than Google Chrome. But I don't want to use anything else but Google Chrome. Bolivian salt flats. Let's go to that. The other point is that he was saying that it's been empirically measured that stuff is flat. Well, yes, it has been empirically measured that stuff is flat. But that's not flats. Flat's about elevation. It's not about curvature. We have measured the curvature of the Earth many times. Now, I'm sure you've seen the transcontinental triangulation in the American Arc of the Parallel. There's a link to this document. This was done around 1900 from memory. There's a link to this document in the description of this video so that you can look at this up for yourself. It's quite a long read. Well, we got 902 pages, so it's a bit of a hard read. But what they did is they went along one, as you can see in this diagram, one line of latitude and did geodetic surveys across there, and they got spherical excess, which means that between the 2 points, at 2 endpoints, it was curved. Another example of measuring the Earth's curvature was the Struve geodetic arc. And they started up in the top of Norway and went down to the Black Sea and took all these measurement points, did triangulation between them all, And again, spherical excess. Measurements that the Earth is curved. Now, for the Bolivian salt flats, and again, this is in a link in the description, they modeled the topography and also looked at the gravity involved in it as well. They found it was indeed flat. There was the Bolivian salt flats are about 2,500 kilometers squared in area, and the total change in elevation is about 1 meter. So that's very flat, but elevation and curvature aren't the same thing, as Clarence AS2 is saying. Well, FLIRF struggle with it because they want it to be the same thing, because that to them, that proves Earth and flat. But it's not the same thing. And that's kind of where their argument falls down. This one goes through, where's the diagram in particular? That one. So you can see this is basically showing the effects of the elevation. And yes, it is very flat, but it still conforms with the curvature. They use WGS 84, which is, oops, what happened? Oh, okay. That's not what I was trying to do. Which is the model of the Earth's surface, an ellipsoid, making sure that it's not perfectly spherical, and it all conformed. If you had any understanding, you'd realize that that means that while it's flat, it's also curved. What's this one? Oh, yes, we'll get to that in a minute. All right, let's get on with Eric.
For example, the Pampas of South America form a bare horizontal surface of nearly 1,000 miles from the Andes to the Atlantic.
Again, flat
The
and
llanos
curvature is not
of the Orinoco
elevation.
form a plain of grass larger than the entire country of France, 250,000 square miles, as flat as the surface of the sea.
Elevation is not
The
curvature.
area between the Carpathian and Ural Mountains also exhibits nearly a perfectly dead level, scarcely rising at all over its 1,500 miles.
Elevation is
In a
not curvature.
2003 experiment done by university geography professors using topographical geodetic surveys, found that the state of Kansas in America was actually flatter than a pancake. Measuring with a confocal laser microscope, the flatness ratio of a pancake figured to 0.957, whereas the entire state of Kansas, covering 80,000 square miles, was determined to have an incredible flatness ratio of only 0.9997, making it literally flatter than a pancake.
All right, we'll stop it there. For a start, I'm sick of his voice. Let's have a corgi break. All right. There was no music because of copyright issues. So notice why did he use such a poor version of this? You can't read what the scales are. Well, I looked this one up. Hang on. Why are you not going? There we go. Here's the actual diagram from the actual paper. Again, link in the description. They were measuring elevation. Elevation is not curvature. It's so obvious. He's lying to you. He wants you to think that so that you think Earth and flat, and therefore there's a big conspiracy. But his whole premise is baseless because he's confusing elevation with curvature, and he's doing that on purpose. He can't have been in this business for this long and not had that explained to him.
The Bolivian salt flats cover an area of 3,900 square miles, so flat that after rainfall, a thin layer of dead, calm water transforms it into the world's largest mirror, perfectly.
So? All that does is show it's flat. It doesn't show that it's not curved.
Reflecting the sky over its entire expanse. In fact, every continent on Earth actually features plains.
All right, and I hate this. This meme is just so stupid. Convex surfaces do not give a mirrored reflection. It depends how convex they are. If that convexity goes over 20,000 kilometers in half the Earth, you're probably going to look very, very flat locally. Flat in the sense of flat earthers mean. So therefore, you would get the same effect as if it was effectively flat. Why can't you? It's so obvious to anyone with half a brain. It suggests that they have less than half a brain.
Several hundred miles in extent, so much so that the National Geographic Society claims more than 1/3 of the world's land areas are plains.
Oh God, this is really dumb. Facepalm warning.
This means that in addition to the 71% of Earth's landmass that is covered in flat, level water, approximately another 1/3 of the remaining land areas are also flat and level, giving a grand total of over 80%.
Ow! Oh, 2 of them, it wasn't enough. I must say I was impressed that he could add 70 and 10 and divide 30 by 3 to get 10. So we could add it to the 70. That's more than most flat earthers are capable of. But it's all based on elevation being the same as curvature, which it's not.
Therefore, the question globe believers should be asking themselves is if over 80% of the Earth is proven to be covered in flat plains and...
Before we move on, I just want to address this particular meme. That's the real thing. Oh, let me maximize that. This is the same meme he just presented. This is the original picture. It's been doctored. Flat earthers lie. Gotta lie to flirt. And if they need to lie to make their point, what does that tell you about their point? It should tell you that it's useless. If you have the truth, you don't need to lie. You just present the truth. The fact that they do any lies at all shows that it's all a grift. Let's get rid of that.
And level water, how could it possibly be a sphere? And if over 80...
Easy, because flatness, elevation and curvature are not the same thing. That's how.
% of the Earth is empirically and demonstrably composed of flat lands and
flat means limited, no change in elevation. Elevation is not curvature. I don't know how many times I have to say this.
Flat water. Where is
It's almost as if he's not listening to me, isn't it?
The sense and reason in assuming the remaining 20% to be globular?
I've given you that. Where's the sense and reason in maintaining that elevation is the same as curvature when it's not?
The remaining lands are composed of hills, mountains, and valleys, which are admittedly not flat, but with changes in elevation always in relation to sea level and a horizontal horizon. So the Earth may not be 100% flat, depending on which definition you're using, but it is certainly at least 80% covered in flat lands and flat water. And the remaining 20%...
I just wanted to go back and look at that meme in more detail. So, again, facepalm moment. They seem to think that because the different elevations of the Great Lakes and the ocean, that proves flat Earth. But no, this is elevation. Elevation is not curvature, and there's a curvature across that. I don't know why he uses such an unclear meme. I'm not sure what the distance is between this line and that line. Oh, hang on, down here. So 3,500 kilometers. So that'll be a fair bit of curvature. And you know what holds, the water down?
Gravity!
That's right. I probably got an echo on that, but sorry about that. All right, let's just a few minutes of this one left. I don't know if we're going to survive to the second one.
and flat water. And the remaining 20%, no matter how you try to squeeze and force fit it into the heliocentric model, is impossible.
Yes, the final gaslighting. What he thinks is a clever play on word, impossible. It's not impossible if you know what you're talking about. If you're an idiot, of course it seems impossible. But if you know that elevation is not curvature, You've presented nothing to debunk the curvature. Nothing whatsoever. Don't be fooled by this idiot. I hope none of the people watching now will be fooled by this idiot. He's just deceitful. How can you allow yourself to be fooled by someone so deceitful? And someone so obviously, he's worth about 2.2 million, would you believe? 2.2 million, he skimmed off people who are gullible and vulnerable. That's disgusting. Oh, yeah, I just wanted to show the level definition in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, having no part higher than another, conforming to the curvature of the liquid parts of Earth's surface. That is the definition of level. I think that's all the things I wanted to show. But like I said, there's a bunch of links in the description of this video. And I've also got a link to Mr. Sensible's Mage results video, where it's really clear that Earth is curved when it's viewed from 100,000 feet with a camera with a rectilinear lens. And he went out of his way, get rid of the ad, went out of his way to make sure that there wasn't anything you could argue with, because you've got a rectilinear lens. You put in reference markers so you can see the curvature against those. He did a prediction before it went up and then compared the results to the prediction if Earth was curved. And it all matched. Watch that video if you have any doubt that Earth is a sphere. So his next video is called, Is the Flat Earth Stationary or Constantly Rising Upwards? So this is more an argument within the Flat Earth world. Most of them say that Earth is stationary. The Flat Earth Society, which isn't a serious thing, it was set up as a debating thing to try and argue things that can't really be argued, and to see how, to practice your debating skills and that sort of thing. They say, well, the reason that things fall with an acceleration of 9.8 meters a second squared is because the entire Earth is moving upwards. The entire flat Earth is moving upwards at that speed. And you get the same effect. Well, that's true. If that was the case, that's what would happen. But there's other ways you can detect that. Let's see how Eric reacts to that. And I'm going to skim through this one because we're running out of time. And to be honest, I'm getting sick of his voice.
For many years, the flat Earth community at large was in agreement that the world is a level, motionless plane, as evidenced by our common sense, everyday experience, and countless scientific experiments, including the Michelson-Morley, Michelson-Gale, Sagnac, Airy's failure, and observable realities such as perfectly circular star trails.
So that's a liar second there. None of those experiments confirmed that the Earth was stationary. And perfectly circular star trails, yes. Well, first of all, there's two poles of rotation. Flat Earth can't explain that. And second of all, this is a bad photograph, but I've shown on this live stream before, I think it was 2 shows ago, a star trail of the Northern Hemisphere. We can see Polaris is not in a single point. It actually moves slightly because it's a little bit off the center of the North Celestial Pole. So lying. Again,
the stationary pole source,
what a surprise.
And the constellations remaining in their relative positions to one another for all of recorded history.
Which is easily explained by the fact that they're very far away and they haven't stayed in the same position for all of recorded history. An almanac is put out every year because they move slightly. The star that's moved the most is Barnard's star. Every year it moves about a degree or something like that. Maybe a minute is probably what I meant to say. All the stars are moving. It's easy to tell. Go get an almanac from the 1850s or something, and you'll find that Polaris is nowhere near where it was at that point.
Recently, however, a few flat earthers have revived Leo Ferrari's old Flat Earth Society claim that the world is not, in fact, a level, motionless plane, but rather a constantly upwards rising plane. These people cite experiments such as a helium balloon moving forward in an accelerating car, or a cork inside a dropped bottle of water momentarily ceasing its...
I think this is really funny because this was done by Dell. Of all people to quote. Eric Dubay to quote Dell.
...descent while midair, as proof positive that Earth cannot be a stationary plane. They claim the only possible way to explain these results is to assume Earth to be constantly rising at 9.8 meters per second, or approximately 22 miles per hour, straight upwards.
Well, that would be 22 miles per hour isn't an acceleration. So I don't know why he said that. But it would certainly be an explanation if that was the case. but there are other reasons why that's not true. We might cover that. Like I said, I haven't looked at this video in detail because the first one was enough for me. We'll see how this goes.
There is some debate amongst them regarding whether this upward motion is a constant velocity or an acceleration. But these new upward rising earthers have all recently come into agreement that our flat Earth can no longer be stationary. These upward rising earthers begin their inquiry innocently enough by asking questions about the directional vector of dropped objects, and why dense objects fall downwards rather than upwards or sideways, for example. To this question, I would give the answer that there is a pressure gradient.
Facepalm warning. In fact, I missed the first couple of seconds. This is going to be really dumb. This is how he explains why things do not go. Our argument against relative density is that, well, why does it go down? What is the mechanism that causes it to go down rather than some other direction? Listen to his explanation for that.
Would give the answer that there is a pressure gradient formed by the amount of stacked air, water, or land over you in a column, which increases the pressure, weight, and density the farther down you go, and that defines direction. While
there can only be one response to that. I've got to find it quickly now. There it is. Do I really need you to debunk that? That is so stupid.
Things like helium balloons fall up, not down, proving there is no downward directional bias. Unsatisfied.
Helium balloons are affected by gravity. They just have a buoyant force going, which is greater. That's all it is. Helium balloons won't go forever. Eventually, they'll stop at a certain elevation where their buoyancy, because of the lack of air pressure, equals the pull of gravity, and they'll just stay there until they release their helium through osmosis through the edges of the balloon, or pop even, and then fall back down again. And that doesn't, the fact that they fall back down again, why is that? It's certainly not relative density, is it?
With this answer, upward rising earthers continue their inquiry by asking, why then does Earth have a pressure gradient stacked in this particular fashion, with the densest layer at the bottom rather than the top or side?
Damn good question.
Now, at this point, I would say such a line of questioning is tantamount to asking, why is water wet? Or why is fire hot?
And that's his deflection. He basically implies that anyone asking that question is stupid. Oh, yes, for you, string and use one.
Gas go down, go boom, down, go boom, boom. Gas go down, go boom, down, go boom, boom.
Yep, that's good stuff. Instead of actually answering the good question, he implies that it's a dumb question.
It's like asking, why don't we walk upside down on the sky and look up to the ground? It's similar to asking, why don't our arms grow out of our pelvis and legs grow out of our torso?
And now he's just reinforcing the dumbness, really.
As anyone who has spent significant time with a 4-year-old knows, the question of, but why, if asked long enough, eventually leads to an infinite regress of explanations that can only be ended with the true, but potentially unsatisfying metaphysical answer of, it is that way, because that's how it was created to be.
That's the flat Earth argument. That's not the same person's argument. Oh, for goodness sake.
Rather than accept that Earth was simply created to have the particular arrangement of density layering that it does, upward rising earthers instead claim that Earth must be a constantly upwards rising plane, and that this constant vertical motion is the only thing that can explain the directional vector. Now, while this could make for an interesting speculation, the fact of the matter is that dropping...
Well, I can think of another thing that explains that.
Gravity!
a water bottle with a cork in it, or watching a helium balloon go forward in a moving car, are not demonstrations of the Earth constantly rising up.
And this is another dumb meme, just ignoring what he's saying for a second. This guy's managed to balance these bowling balls on each other. Flirts are saying that, well, if Earth's moving, how can that be possible? Because they're moving with the Earth as well. It's a constant speed. It's not an acceleration. So therefore, there's no reason for it to move. If you can get them balanced, and that's quite an achievement, it's not going to fall over because of the Earth moving. The Earth's not moving that far, not accelerating. So why would you expect that? Well, it is accelerating very slightly, but in no way that it would be enough to affect this. Flirt don't scale.
Upwards. At best, these demonstrations provide tangential evidence for their line of questioning, but in no way prove their assumption that Earth is a constantly rising plane.
And that's another one of his persuasion techniques. Just make a statement, but don't support it in any way. This is how he fools people.
In fact, upward rising Earthers are forced to pile assumption upon assumption in order to defend their new dogma. Assumption number...
Yeah, there's no assumptions to flat Earth. Let's have a look at. Oh, he's got some assumptions. Like I said, I hadn't got this far into the video, but there's not that much more to go. We are running a little over time. I've got to get into the memes for the last time, but let's see how we go.
Number 1. Their first assumption. In order to answer the question of directional vector, going against all common sense, our everyday experience, and countless scientific experiments proving Earth to be completely motionless, they make the grand assumption that Earth is constantly rising upwards 9.8 meters per second. Assumption number 2. In order to have a world that constantly rises upwards forever, they are now forced to make a second assumption, which is that there exists an infinite expanse of empty space above our flat Earth for the constantly rising world to rise into.
Yes, they're logical assumptions so far, based on their premise. No one's presented evidence for that premise yet, and no one has presented evidence for the flat Earth version of this.
Assumption number 3. Next, they are forced to assume that the entire atmosphere is somehow fixed like glue to rise perfectly along with the upward rising Earth, because otherwise, the upward rising Earth would constantly be crashing up into the bottoms of birds, planes, helicopters, and everything else in flight above the forever upwards rising Earth. Assumption number 4. Finally, they are forced to assume that the sun, moon, and stars are also all constantly rising 9.8 meters per second somehow.
Well, if we're on a flat Earth covered by a dome with, that is the firmament, which has these things in it, I'm not sure why that would be a problem.
Fixed along with the rising atmosphere. Otherwise, of course, the upward rising Earth would crash into them as well. So rather than accept the order of density layering on Earth to simply be as it is, upward rising Earthers prefer to ignore their common sense, everyday experience, and countless scientific experiments proving a stationary Earth in order to make...
I think that's a good time to leave that. I think he's just pretty much debunked himself, ignoring scientific experiments. That's what flat earthers do. They have to. I think Mikey can have the final word on this, despite the echo.
Bullshit with a capital bull. With a capital bull. Shit.
Thanks, Mikey. All right, had enough of him. Eric Dubay, goodness me. Please don't put me through him again. I guess I have to at some point, don't I? All right, on to Meme Roundup. Yes, have a read of this one. So I don't know why they've picked on this in particular. I mean, when you're on Earth, who has their head straight up all the time? So if you're in space, your head isn't being pulled down by gravity, so it can go whatever way you like. And of course, he cherry-picked pictures to support whatever he wanted to say in this meme. So it's kind of a nothing meme, and yet somehow they think they have a point. Again, Flurf don't scale. A dam is not the same as the 40,000 kilometers circumference of the Earth. Do I have to say this again? Now, I thought this was hilarious. I saw this on the X platform. I don't know how you can see spots in the sun. If the sun was rotating, the light would be rotating. It's not. Took the photo today. Earth and flat. The sun doesn't rotate. How can you tell from a glare-filled photo like that? If you do want to see sunspots without damaging your eyes, it's very easy. Get yourself a shoebox is probably the best thing, and cut a hole in one end, say a centimetre wide, and a pinhole at the other, and project that onto a screen, a flat surface of some sort. And you should, not a pinhole, the other way around. Yeah, and you should be able to see, in what's displayed, you'll see the sun, and you'll be able to see the sunspots as well. Did this as a kid. It was fascinating. But a camera with that amount of glare is not going to be able to show you that. You can get solar filters and look at it through a telescope, but you probably don't need it through a telescope. But if you've got a good enough solar filter, you should be able to take a photo of the sun and see the sunspots yourself. People have done that for when the ISS goes across the sun. Easy enough to Google those images. Now, this is one of the most complex flat Earth memes I've ever seen. So I thought it was worth mentioning. And again, it's similar to the Great Lakes one. Because According to the globe model, there should be no problem with water curving on the surface of something like this, and the locking gates are still in place. Well, yes, because there's difference in you're going over land. You have to lift the ship up over the land. Whether it's curved or not, you still have to do that, as your diagram shows. So this is stupid. It's actually showing why it would still work on a globe, and yet you're arguing against it and calling it just plain dumb. Yes, it is, but not for the reason you thought. Oh, this is a face-palming one. I mean, I guess they all are, but yes, they don't get that. That doesn't mean if the atmosphere moves with the Earth, as it has done since the Earth was formed, doesn't mean you don't get winds. Winds are caused by temperature variations, which are caused by the sun and the materials on the Earth itself and the oceans. It's way beyond below the minimum understanding of the world to be able to put out a meme like this. You shouldn't be allowed to. It's proof that you're an idiot. And to finish off, I thought it was good to the final meme of the Daily Jarsz, at least for now, a meme that poses questions to flat earthers. These are things that flat Earth can't explain. Tides, which is a big one. If water always finds its level, tides imply that the level keeps changing. How does that work? How GPS works? They talk about, it's towers on land, but that doesn't explain planes over and ships on the ocean. 24-hour daylight and darkness at the poles. Well, I think their model explains the North Pole, but it doesn't explain the South Pole. Sunset and sunrise. There's just no way that could happen on a flat Earth of the dimensions that they say. It's just pure geometry. The equinoxes. I think they mean the sun rises in the east everywhere on Earth at the equinoxes and sets in the west. That can't happen on flat Earth, because if the sun is rotating close to the Earth, that wouldn't happen. Limitations of radar, yes. Different types of radar have different limitations, but the fact that radar can't see over the horizon, some radars can't, proves that there's something in the way, like a planet. Non-stop commercial flight durations in the Southern Hemisphere. Yes, I don't know why they don't think you can't get a flight from Sydney to San Diego. You just go to the Qantas website or the LATAM website, or even Air New Zealand does it from Auckland, and book it and jump on it. And there's plenty of videos on YouTube where Sam Chewy is one I've seen where they've taken that flight. So there's evidence there that it exists, that's for sure. You've got to provide some evidence that it doesn't. Where did I get up to? Angular size of the sun and moon. Yes, Wolfie 6020 has a very good video with a solar filter of the sun from sunrise to sunset. And the angular size does not change. And Southern Hemisphere star patterns, which is one of the killers. That's the GOSH experiment I have, the Great Observation in the Southern Hemisphere, where in winter, so in June or so, around the solstice, there's darkness in South America and darkness in Western Australia, which means that you can see the same stars half a world away. You can both see the Southern Cross, and that shouldn't be possible on the flat Earth because, as you can see on the map behind here, you'd be looking in this direction for south from South America, and in Australia, Western Australia, you're looking in that direction, the complete opposite direction. It just wouldn't work if you could see the same stars at the same time. And that's it. That's it for the Daily Jarsz, but we're still going to have the Weekly Jarsz on at Friday at 2000 UTC, and that's 6 a.m. Eastern Australian Standard Time on Saturday for those living in God's Zone. I will still do memes roundup, so if you see some silly memes, please send them to me. So please join me next Friday evening at UTC at 2000 for the first Weekly Jarsz show, and we'll look back at the week in Derb. Do the YouTube things. Like the stream. Click subscribe. Click join. Leave a comment. I love to read your comments, and in particular, if you're one of the few who watch my videos who aren't subscribed to the channel, please click the subscribe button below this video on your screen. I'd love to have you as a subscriber, and click the notification bell so that you're aware of when the Weekly Jarsz is on. I think for the last time on the Daily Jarsz anyway. That just about does us. Thank you so much for watching. There's nothing left to do but cue the corgi.
You're despicable.